The population bracelet. The population bracelet has been mandatory equipment for every citizen for about a decade. I can't remember for exactly how long. The bracelet looks like a wristwatch, but instead of showing a time, it shows a number, a rank, the wearer's rank in the population. The oldest person on Earth has number 1 displayed on their bracelet screen, and so on. Mine, it displays 5 billion something. I'm only 30 years old right now. Yesterday, I woke up in my apartment's room, staring at the scenery outside my window. Then I stared at my wrist. My bracelet still displays the number of 5 billion something on its screen. Another 20 something is added to my number. It means that a number of people somewhere around the world died in the last few hours. Of course, a number of new babies were also born during that time. I still don't understand why the usage of the bracelets are made mandatory by the governments around the world, up to the point where someone goes out of their house without it, it's considered a crime, and they will be charged with 24 hours in prison. It doesn't make sense. I do realize that for the past few decades, the world has been in an overpopulation, and a solution to it should be provided before it's too late. But still, the monitoring method doesn't make sense to me. Maybe the government needs to monitor the population, but why does every citizen need to see their rank in the population? And also the increasing and decreasing number of it every day. The government didn't give a specific explanation about the why. My best guess is that if we knew the increasing number each day, maybe we will give it more thought before deciding to make more babies. Maybe. The only thing I've heard about it is a rumor saying that it's dealing with the human population control project that the governments around the world have been working on. The government said that they can't reveal everything about it yet, but they promise they will. Soon enough, they said, when the project is ready. I skipped the thought that filled my mind almost every morning and went to the bathroom. I would spend the next few days of my holidays in my parents' house out of town. I haven't seen them in months due to work. Once I had finished with the preparation, I grabbed my car's key and took off. My mom greeted me with so much love and passion when I arrived at my parents' front door. She hugged me so tight as if I was a 7-year-old boy who had been missing for 3 years. Like she always does. The first day in my parents' house went like it always had. We spent the night talking in the dining room, sharing stories we didn't know about each other during the time we were apart. When the clock ticked 10 p.m., I asked to go to my room upstairs. I was tired from the trip and quickly fell asleep. When I woke up this morning, I felt strange. I can't describe why. I did the first thing I do every morning. I pulled up my right arm to check on the bracelet that I never took off, even when I sleep. I don't want to stay in prison for 24 hours just because I forgot it and left it at home. I checked the number display on its screen. I thought my eyes were playing a trick on me because the number displayed on my bracelet didn't make sense. I looked at it over and over. I opened my eyes wider every time. I shook my bracelet several times just in case there was a malfunction on the machine. The number still did not change. The number displayed on the screen was 2. Number 2? I wake up in the morning and all of a sudden I am number 2 in population rank? Which means when I woke up today, I am the second oldest person in the world? What the hell? That doesn't make sense. I'm only 30 years old. How could I shift from 5 billion something to 2 in just one night? I immediately ran into my parents' room. I just went to ask them if their bracelets were having the same malfunction as mine. I mean, if I shifted to number 2, then what about them? I knock on my parents' door before opening it, only to witness a horrifying scene in the room. On the bed inside the room, where there should have been my mom and dad, lay something else. 2 babies, laying side by side on my parents' bed. What the hell? Where are my parents? Whose babies are those? I thought. I quickly ran towards the babies on the bed, and I stared at their faces alternately. My parents had showed me photos of when they were kids and babies last night, and those babies on the bed look just like them. If someone sees me, they may think I'm crazy because I stared at the female baby and asked, "Mom?" The female baby silently stares back at me with shock, horror, and confusion in her eyes. The same shock, horror, and confusion I also see in the male baby's eyes. From the look in their eyes, I can tell that they really are my parents, somehow reverted into babies. Wait, I stutter. Wait here, okay? I tell them frantically before running outside the house. The neighborhood is so silent. It's very unusual as my neighborhood is in the city with the highest population in the country. I run to Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson's house next door. The door isn't locked, so I walk in. Mr. Stevenson? Mrs. Stevenson? So sorry, I really need your help, I shouted in panic. But when I reach the living room, I see 2 other babies laying in there. One baby laying on the couch next to today's newspaper, the other one laying on the carpet on the floor next to a vacuum cleaner that is still on. Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson are African American, and both babies in the living room are also African American. Seeing what had happened to my parents, I immediately think that the Stevensons are also somehow reverted back into babies. And it looks like Mr. Stevenson was reading the newspaper and Mrs. Stevenson was cleaning the house when it had happened. Something horrible is happening, and I don't know why. When I'm about to run outside to look for other people in the neighborhood, I see the news on the Stevensons' television. It's a flash news alert, and the news anchor is frantically detailing an incident that explains what just happened. A few hours ago, according to the news anchor, a government research facility had exploded. The government had been working on a research project called age inversion drugs. According to the news, the drugs were primarily to be used on death row inmates. The drugs, when consumed, will reverse the aging process of the user at a super speed. The user who consumed the drug will grow younger and younger in minutes. The end process should make the users revert back to teenagers, to babies, and eventually to sperms before they turn back into what they were before they were born. Nothing. They will vanish. Gone. For good. The drugs also seem to work very well even when put into the stomachs of a user who already died. The drugs chemically reacted and reversed the aging process of the dead bodies, shrinking them back into nothing. That's one way to solve the population problem. The government will no longer have to provide burial sites. The land can be used to produce food instead. The only problem with the incident with the research facility is that the drugs aren't perfect just yet. It's not yet reverting the user's body into nothingness. Right now, it just reverses the aging process and stops at the age of 6 months. It shrinks the users and reverts them back into babies. Now, because of the explosion, the drugs, which were formerly contained in a liquid state in tanks, changed into a gaseous state and quickly spread all over the country. By the time the news anchor finished with the last bit of information, she suddenly stopped and twitched. And for the next 5 minutes, her body shook while shrinking fast. When the process was over, she sat on the floor, now in the form of a baby, looking horrified and confused. Now I realized what had happened. My brain starts to think fast. Maybe everyone has been exposed, and it looks like the reaction started from the oldest to the youngest. My parents, and then the Stevensons, who are 60 years old, already reverted into babies just a few hours ago. The news anchor, who I know is just a few months older than me, just reverted to a baby a moment ago. Right before my eyes, on live TV. In panic and horror, I stare at the population bracelet on my wrist. It shows number 1 on its screen. If my assumption is right, then it means I only have a few minutes left before I, too, revert into a baby.